The Sonic. Hey everyone, Nux here. And before we dive into this very meaty Sonic update, I want to start off by explaining why this video took a bit of time to get out. First of all, I wanted to let my last video on my favorite games of the last decade have some breathing room, since I just uploaded that video a week or two ago. I've actually been uploading pretty consistently all throughout January of this year. Not daily per se, but definitely at a better pace than any month last year. So I just want to say please check out some of my last videos in the month because they definitely could use the support. Next reason is the fact that this news rapid fired out of nowhere. I had virtually no time to prepare since I was preoccupied in other life stuff. But regardless, I wanted to wait for more details anyway, since there was so much coming out and I didn't want whatever video I did make to quickly be outdated. It's why I don't always strike the iron while it's hot, as they say. Though this very version of the video might get outdated anyway if they follow up with more information soon. But that's fine. Intro done, let's get into the main topics. I find it a little ironic that all this news drops just a few months after the long 2020 drought of substantial news that inspired my empty status of Sonic video. And I still stand by that video, because it was more so talking about Sonic being empty in spirit than in content. Something I feel that a few people didn't really understand. But that's not what we're here to talk about, because clearly there's way more important Sonic news to discuss. And it's been a long while since I've been able to say that we have news of actual importance. But man, I almost don't even know where to start. But I guess we'll start at the beginning of this madness. And it all started when the voice actor for Sonic the Hedgehog in the 2010 era of games, Roger Craig Smith, announced on Twitter that he would no longer be voicing Sonic as a character. Now, this was pretty surprising to see, because he's basically been voicing Sonic for over a decade, and at a certain point it just felt like he wasn't going anywhere for a long time. But alas, the day is here. Roger is stepping down as Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, in terms of my personal opinions on this, let me not BS you all. It is no secret at all that I was not a fan of Roger's interpretation and voice for Sonic. And I also had a lot of disagreements with his own views in terms of the franchise throughout the 2010s. Like, I don't want to come off as a jerk celebrating Roger is gone when he was basically the voice of a character for people throughout a whole decade. But I'm also not gonna kid y'all in pretending I was happy with his Sonic voice. I didn't think he was a terrible voice actor overall, but it was just that his Sonic voice was not fitting to the character to me, and the voice as well as the personality shift it brought made Sonic as a character much less likable, and really made me miss his previous incarnations. And this is especially going to tick people off, but I believe his voice for Sonic got slightly worse with each game as opposed to better like with Ryan Drummond or Jason Griffith. It was just pushing the limits for me with each game. So I hate to say it, but a voice switch for this character was long overdue. I know, spicy hot opinions today. The comments and subtweets on twitter.com are gonna be a mess. But I've been saying all this for over a decade now, and I don't care about hurting Sonic's fans' feelings in terms of game opinions, so we are just going to make like the All-American rejects and move along. Or we would if that were all of the major Sonic bombshells. Not too long after this news with Sonic's voice actor, we learned from an interview that the main dub writers of the 2010 era of Sonic games, being 𝗵𝗃 and 𝗵𝗃, aka 𝗵𝗃, are also departing from the Sonic series. Okay, so with Roger, there's a tiny part of sympathy from me considering many people did enjoy his Sonic voice work. And it seemed like Roger was kind of just thrown out of his role without much build-up. I mean, his last Sonic role is going to be freaking 𝗵𝗄𝗄 Tetris 2. But with 𝗵𝗃, that sympathy is not there in the slightest. Their writing for the Sonic series throughout the 2010s was atrocious and an absolute mockery to the storytelling of this series. You're free to say you enjoyed their writing if you want, whatever, but for me, I don't have that same respect towards them because they didn't have that respect towards the fans or the Sonic franchise. Now, harassing them and spamming them with stuff is definitely a big no-no, but despite that, it doesn't take away from the fact that they're legitimately terrible writers who didn't give the characters and world of this series the justice it deserves. However, while many people are celebrating at this big news of 𝗵𝗃𝗃 being out the door, I wouldn't get hopes up and say this 100% confirms the return of genuinely good storytelling and characterization in this series. The original scripts and major plot elements of the 2010 era Sonic games still mostly come from the Japanese heads over at Sonic Team, and specifically, many bad decisions come from folks on the game development team, such as Iizuka, or even higher ups within Sega as a whole. So while the departure of 𝗵𝗃𝗃 could mean a long overdue decrease in bad try-hard comedic dialogue over here in the West, it doesn't guarantee overall that the stories will be good. We also have to wait and see who will replace 𝗵𝗃𝗃, as they could potentially be as bad if not even worse. A lot of people love to suggest folks like Ian Flynn, but well, while he'd be a slight improvement over 𝗵𝗃𝗃, let's just say that he wouldn't completely solve all our Sonic story problems, as he also has some flaws with his writing I could ramble on about. So that pretty much tackles the first set of major news, but it did not stop there. If you thought Roger was the only one who got knocked out of his Sonic role, then you would be mistaken, as we later learned that the 2010 era voice of Amy Rose and Tails would also not be reprising their role. Now, this was huge, because what this essentially confirmed is that this wasn't just Sega booting out one voice actor randomly. This was a complete purge of the current cast of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, these things don't just happen for no reason. An example of this would be when the Dreamcast era voice actors for Sonic, such as Ryan Drummond, were booted out in favor of the 4Kids cast, who you know as the voice actors that were brought on for Sonic X in games such as Sonic Unleashed and Sonic 06. Which makes for a good transition into probably the biggest story of this blowout, and what is most likely the source of all this madness. So back around the time of the Game Awards of last year, there was a random tweet dropped by Netflix about them doing a Sonic show, and it was quite the surprising update. I even planned to blend that topic in a discussion alongside topics such as the Sonic movie sequel. There wasn't much to go off of though, because the tweet ended up deleted, and some of us had doubts as to whether the show was even still going to be a thing. Well, fast forward to now, and we now know for sure that this show is a very real thing. Netflix as well as Sega themselves confirmed that the name of this show would be called Sonic Prime. It will be a 26-episode saga loosely based around the in-game universe of Sonic, and will have its story based around saving the multiverse. It apparently is meant to target kids, families, and longtime fans, and it is being done by WildBrain Vancouver Studio and Man of Action Entertainment. Now this is a lot to unpack. Like, I don't even know where to begin. I guess we'll start with my knee-jerk impressions. Now, in terms of what I think of Sonic getting another show, it is a very mixed feeling. I was saving my thoughts on some past Sonic shows for a potential future video, but screw it. I need to make clear that with Sonic shows in the past, I think that they are usually not that good. And part of the reason for that is because Sonic shows tend to drastically shift from the tone and energy of the games. Because Sega has zero to no quality or consistency control over this IP, Sonic shows will typically take these characters and do things with them that are stupidly different and not that great. With Sonic Underground, they gave Sonic weird siblings and put him in a singing rock band. With Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, they basically made him a Looney Tunes character. And with Sonic Boom, well, let's just say that the show is not good, and I will be tackling that can of worms another day. The closest we had to a good Sonic show is with the more anime-inspired Sonic media, being Sonic X and the Sonic OVA, but even those two mediums have flaws that hold them back greatly, which I'll cover when I do my full video on Sonic shows. So because of that, while I would be open to seeing a really cool Sonic animated project that really leans into the game universe, another one-off show that feels like it's going to be very different is concerning, especially with the people making it. Now, the Man of Action angle has some potential, as those are the same people who worked on Ben 10. The original Ben 10 series actually had a nice balance of a casual comedic tone for the kiddies, but also could take itself seriously when it needed to in terms of world building and character. But the Wild Brain Vancouver angle is very concerning, because after doing some research into that studio, not only is it partly connected to Dick Entertainment, yes, that Dick Entertainment, but their modern day show works such as Mega Man Fully Charged are not that good, especially in the writing and animation quality. There's also the fact that the main premise kind of sounds like set up to be a hot mess, like a multiverse storyline in a Sonic show? That could go so many wildly different directions. Are they trying to say that this is going to be an Into the Spider-Verse type of project, where we see multiple versions of Sonic such as Classic Sonic or Boom Sonic teaming up with the core Sonic? Or will it just be alternate dimension hopping, like going into a pirate Sonic world or an evil Sonic world? Heck, one source claims that there's even the possibility that it could connect to other Sega worlds, which is, whew, that is truly something to imagine. As cool and fan servicey as this show sounds, it also sounds like it has the potential to be a complete explosion of disaster. So all I can say is that I am very much looking forward to seeing it either way. It will be an amusing spectacle. But hey, as long as it isn't another safe or boringly unfitting piece of modern Sonic media, then I think we could be heading in a better direction. But considering Sega's track record, well, you know. So backing up to the voice actor news, what does this show mean for the cast? Will the new cast for the games be based around whoever is casted for this show? Is it possible that both this show and the next big game could even tie into the sequel to the Sonic movie and bring in Ben Schwartz as the next main voice of Sonic? There are so many possibilities to the future of Sonic in terms of its voice cast, and we are still constantly getting updates about it. So it's hard for me to make a prediction as to what the heck is going to happen in terms of the cast for these characters. But here's some potential ideas on what I think could be happening and some other thoughts. So first of all, we know that most likely the reason that these voice actors are getting booted out is because they want to bring in new ones for the show. But why though? Why not have them just voice for the new show? One theory speculates that the reason why most of the cast got dropped is because this new show is being animated in Canada, and they apparently have some sort of law or something to where any show made in Canada itself must have a mostly Canadian cast. Now I thought this was some BS because I had never heard of anything like this, but a friend of mine who does live in Canada confirmed that this is a thing. So it's possible that we are straight up looking at an all Canadian cast when it comes to Sonic Prime itself, which is just laughably weird and stupid to say the least. However, we actually have a survivor from the 2010 era cast that confirmed that they will be reprising their role, and that person is Mike Pollock, who voices Dr. Eggman. And it's pretty amusing, because 𝗏𝗏𝗯 was one of the few voice actors who survived the 4Kids cast Purge when we did transition into the 2010 era cast. Now, in terms of my thoughts on this, Mike Pollock returning is bittersweet. On one hand, I think he is a good voice actor actually, and his Eggman voice has been mostly good and consistent since his debut. While he doesn't nail Dean Bristow's more menacing tone, he pretty much is the Eggman voice. So I don't mind him staying, even if he is kind of a jerk sometimes outside his voice acting work. But besides that, it's also bittersweet because it really makes it unclear as to who will return or not, and for what medium. Will Pollock actually be in Sonic Prime despite this weird Canadian law thing? Or is this law rule just over-exaggerated or something? It's all a mess. So for that reason, I'm just going to take a step back on that subject until we hear more about the final cast for the show, the next set of Sonic games, and etc. I will say though that even with what little news we have right now, I'm actually pretty open to starting over fresh with a new cast. Because aside from disliking Roger Craig Smith's Sonic voice, I also wasn't a fan of many other characters' 2010 era voices too. The biggest examples being Amy, Knuckles, and Shadow, whose voice work I've criticized many times throughout these videos. But I do feel a little sorrier for the modern voices of characters like Tails or Rouge, who actually didn't sound too bad throughout these years. But regardless, I just hope that these characters actually sound like themselves again, and that their writing and characterization is better to go along with it. So, how do we wrap up my thoughts on this crazy update news? Well, I think I've said all I can in terms of the voice actors and Sonic Prime. But now it's time for us to talk about what this could mean for the Sonic video games, because as I've said, in case you all have forgotten, Sonic the Hedgehog is first and foremost a video game property. And speaking of that leads me to my biggest problem with this Sonic Prime announcement. I absolutely hate the fact that the direction of the video games is heavily tied to these unrelated TV shows. With Sonic X, it made a little sense due to how big Sonic X was setting up to be, as it was really the first Sonic show to really tie into the games and present that side to a mainstream audience, even if I still do think that they completely disrespected the Dreamcast era voice actors by not even telling them that they were getting replaced. But with Sonic Boom, it was just absolutely extra disrespectful and unneeded. They really only did it because they didn't care about how the Sonic Boom brand was going to affect the mainline Sonic video games, and basically screwed up the entire series brand by starving us out on quality mainline titles and feeding us trash Sonic Boom games, and that very nothing of a show that they were based on. But that is a whole different rant for another day. In short, I just hate the idea that any piece of Sonic media that isn't the games can influence Sega and Sonic Team enough to completely clean slate things such as the cast and even the tone of the video games. It's a really big issue that annoys me greatly. So because of all this, the next set of Sonic games for the 30th anniversary are a lot more unpredictable than I originally thought. My big bet was pretty much on it being a sequel to the 25th anniversary, with another safe, nostalgia-filled classic Sonic game, and another terrible modern Sonic game. But now, I'm not so sure what could happen. Sega casually booting out the 2010 era cast, and 𝗵𝗏𝗯𝗃 shakes some stuff up, but we will have to see how much it shakes up. Because I still have a strong feeling that a lot of the 2010 era shenanigans are not going to disappear overnight. I could easily still see BS like the 𝗿𝗲𝗳𝗏 still being around, the Wisp still being around, Classic Sonic finding his way into another modern game and playing it with 2D sections, especially with Iizuka still mostly calling the shots. But this is really the first time in ages where I feel like this series actually might not be completely predictable and boring. And that alone perks my interest back up with Sonic the Hedgehog. And that's a big statement coming from me, considering I'm coming off videos where it feels like I was literally ready to walk out the door with this series. So in conclusion, I wish all the exiting voice actors good luck in their future roles, as most of them are good voice actors overall, just some of them I didn't enjoy in Sonic. I wish 𝗵𝗃𝗃 a very good riddance, and I pray that Sonic gets better all throughout his brand. And I just hope that I can finally feel some genuinely good, faithful spirit and quality with this series again. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to leave a like and leave a comment letting me know what your thoughts are on everything that I talked about in this video. What do you think about all this voice actor shakeup craziness? Do you think Sonic Prime will be a good Sonic show? Etc. Let me know down below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you are new to it for more videos like this one. And follow my social media such as my Twitter for updates on the channel and more of my thoughts on video games. This has been 𝗃𝗂𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗀, and I'm out. Peace.